Hey, everybody. I'd like to share a consultation I just recently did with Nate. Nate has a small, older house, and Nate was concerned with trying to figure out how to be a bit more resilient in the case of a grid down situation, and also just what are some of the lower hanging fruit options that might be possible to do in Nate's specific context. So here you go. There's 2 hours of us dorking out about what we can do with Nate's house.
Okay, yeah. So I read your emails and I um, read what I think you're looking for, and I looked
Mhm.
through all the stuff on Zillow and to try to get an idea. And it's funny because there was only one basement shot on Zillow, and I was like, I need to see the basement, and and also there's no attic shot either. I'm like, I want to know what's in the attic, but just because we're recording now, I guess maybe if you just want to say for like 30 seconds or less, what you're trying to do, and tell a little bit about your house, and I guess we'll start the video now.
Sure. Um, yeah, so my wife and I bought a house for the first time, 2019. Um, we had always rented before that, and so there's a lot that we don't know and didn't really know what we were looking for.
Yep.
And it's an old house, built 1916. Um, the footprint is about 650 square feet, but it's 1.5 stories.
Oh, okay.
And let's see what else can I say about it? It's a stucco exterior.
Hmm.
I mean, wood frame, typical kind of house here
Hmm.
for the turn of the century. Um, and what I'm looking for is just where to start with kind of improving the mostly heating efficiency of the house, because I think that's kind of the biggest energy
Yeah.
expenditure we have here living in a cold climate.
Yep.
Um, and I assume there's like some pretty simple things to do. Like I know adding insulation to the attic and maybe blowing insulation into the walls. There's a lot of there's a lot of advice out there,
Hmm.
and I don't have a good sense of like what really is the best thing to do for leaning towards being more sustainable and
Yep.
maybe not like being as completely dependent on the grid, um, so that we could, if we lose one of gas, heat, I mean, our gas, our electricity, like, can we stay warm for a few days? That kind of thing.
Yep. Um, yeah. I have a million thoughts, and so before we kind of run around on Zillow and on Google checking some stuff out, I was immediately drawn to what I think is the reality that if the grid goes down, you even though you're running on natural gas for your primary heat, if the grid goes down, you can't run your circulation pumps.
Right.
And so, even though nat gas or natural gas typically is really resilient during power outages, I mean, I know throughout my youth the handful of times where, when I was growing up, we had natural gas, and or the two places I rented myself that had natural gas, we had grid down for a couple days in some instances, but the stove still worked. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
and I don't fully understand the nature of grid up down in relation to how that can affect over time the natural gas supply. But my interpretation has been the natural gas supply is very stable and would definitely persist through just brownouts or blackouts and that kind of thing. And so yes, while you would have the ability to probably passively produce a tiny bit of core heat by running your cooking stove. That's obviously
Yeah.
not super safe, not super ideal. Um, and so you're in a situation where if the grid goes down for any appreciable amount of time, your high efficiency, high end natural gas boiler that heats your home isn't going to do you much good. And it's only a matter of x number of hours, x number of days, depending upon the outside temperature and the climate you're in at that moment, for you to potentially be getting into water damage and freezing pipes and weird stuff like that.
Right.
And so, it's one of those things where, especially after what just happened in Texas, last year, I mean, that was a horror show for those people. These are people that have so many people never even experienced what 15 or 20 degrees was in the first place. They're
Yeah.
living in homes that were designed to keep heat out, not hold it in, you know? And what it seemed like, the moment that your persons or your family are physically safe, it immediately turns into how many hours do I have before this turns into, a disaster with frozen pipes whenever the water comes back on and the power comes back on and pumps start turning on, pressurizing broken pipes and things like that. And so, grid down is something that is going to keep happening all the time. And I'm actually amazed at how good, in general, I should say in general, how good, the power grid is for most of us in America. Like the more I talk to people that live in other places, the more I realize that being able to rely on all the food in your refrigerator never spoiling or your freezer never spoiling for years, it's kind of awesome and it's kind of rare, So I was immediately drawn to trying to figure out how to close the security loop in the least possible steps for you being able to continue running your circulation pumps.
Right.
And so, I'm trying to figure out how to stage this in order, so that way, this video for anyone listening will kind of make sense if they're jumping in cold, trying to understand what you're looking for. But to reiterate what you're looking for, you've got a house built around 100 years ago, and it has an unknown amount of insulation or energy upgrades. It's got, I won't publish it, but I was looking at your energy bill, and honestly, it didn't actually look that bad for a house that was built, almost 100 years ago, which makes me think that the house is either a little bit either the heated space in the home is a little bit smaller than I was anticipating, or that it actually, during some of the remodeling that happened over the years, some care was actually put into actually at least insulating the exterior walls. So to put it into reference to how my brain thinks about it, it looked like during the coldest month for you in that house, the coldest month of January, you burned around 1 cord of mixed hardwood worth of wood heat if you had a modern EPA approved wood stove. And that, to me coming from, home built passive solar homes, that's kind of a lot, but I actually talked to 2 other friends about your specific use case, a few hours ago. And one of them said, hell, I wished I only burned a cord of wood to heat my house in January, because he was in him and his wife are in a house that's probably it's a bit bigger than yours, but it's about the same vintage, so to speak. Yeah. And it's pretty clear there's been no appreciable upgrades to his home in a while. And so, I immediately started thinking to myself, okay, if I were in your shoes, I feel like trying to protect your food and trying to protect your home from damage would probably really be the lowest hanging fruit, to try to figure out, in the short term. And so you have a home that looks like it's not too terribly inefficient to begin with. We're worried about a grid down situation on a, not zero, but modest budget. And I was thinking that at least, me instructing you about how I would approach this is the very first thing I would probably do, which shouldn't really cost anything, or at least very little, is to try to ascertain exactly what the energy efficiency of the home is. Now, we can look at the heating bill and that will tell us some things, but if you were burning 1 cord of wood or about 22 million BTUs worth of heat for the coldest month of the year, January, at least that's how it looked in the energy history you sent me. Yeah. If it was 22 million BTUs worth of heat loss, it might be possible to learn that you can cut that by 20 or 30% without breaking the bank, and the most important thing that I was going to recommend right off the bat would be trying to assess the level of air sealing the home has, right? And
Yeah. So I think I mentioned I'm getting the blower door test.
oh,
May.
perfect. Oh my gosh. Okay. Why are you even
Yeah.
talking to me? Because that was the very first thing I was gonna talk about. And so are you able to see, the picture?
No.
Your house? Okay, I'm not sharing it yet. Let me do that right now. Okay. All right, sharing that window. Okay, cool. All right. And now we have my ugly mug off the screen, thankfully. So we're looking at a house here. It may or may not be yours here in the middle, right?
Yep.
And so you said the footprint is 650 square feet?
Yeah, about that. Yep.
I'm trying to look down the side. I'm trying to kind of zoom around a little bit so I can see behind a little bit. I see, but it's like a story and a half, right?
Yep.
Okay. And I'm just looking around. It's a really sweet house.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
what I'm concerned about is with air sealing is so you see how I'm kind of mousing over. These could be these kind of wooden. I don't know what I would even call those. I think it's a facade. I don't necessarily know if those are little wooden beams that actually run. I mean,
I think they actually go all the way through.
They do. Okay.
I'm not positive though.
Okay. I was immediately thinking about that because if those do go all the way through, as attractive as they are, they represent an area I have seen in the past in one of my own homes ages ago that I was renting. I'd seen in the past where that wood has shrunk over time, right? That wood can shrink, even if it just shrinks a couple percent throughout the seasons, right? As the humid late spring, summer air swells it, in the winter it shrinks. Just silly things like that can actually create, if you imagine taking a piece of junk mail, right? I've seen instances where just wood that actually penetrates all the way through the home, from the inside to the outside of the home. I've seen it shrink as much as being able to slide a credit card around it, right? And sometimes you could slide a credit card or a piece of mail, between like the plaster gap in the wood, and sometimes people paint over it so many times that eventually the paint can kind of bridge it, but then sometimes the paint might crack. And so, there's millions of little details that a blower door test will be able to the blower door test will give you a number and a number or a rating. And I'm not the most familiar person with what those numbers and ratings may imply, but what you can do is you can figure out the amount of square footage of your home that is your living envelope. You can figure out how bad whatever number or how good whatever number you get is, and then you can start trying to chase down all these air leaks, right? Mm-hmm. And in my opinion, air sealing and air leaks, even though everyone harps about them and everyone says that they're such a big deal, I don't think they actually harp about them enough. Because if you think about it, it doesn't matter if your home has R50 or R80 straw bale walls. If you've got a fist size hole worth of small little gaps all around your house, right? Or all around your house, in your basement or on your first floor, that means that you've got the equivalent of like, a small air compressor permanently blowing outdoor air through your home. And air leaks bypass your insulation, right? Yeah. And so if your insulation is bypassed, then if your insulation is bypassed, then it doesn't matter how good your house was insulated, you're operating far less efficiently than if you had far less insulation but an airtight house.
Yep.
Right? And so one thing I've learned, just to go off on a tiny tangent, is that I've actually, for my personal homes, I'm actually trying to figure out how to cost effectively minimize the amount of insulation that I'm cramming into my homes, because I've discovered that once you solve for air sealing, a home that is nearly airtight, with limited controlled outside air exchange, you could have an R20 house, R20 everywhere, which is far below code these days, and it may be more comfortable and outperform like an R50 house, right? And it's just, it's, if you could imagine what it would be like to, just have the amount of air, so like, for example, I'm looking at this little first floor image here, right?
Yep.
There may be, so that light socket on the lower left, right? I'm sorry, the little power socket. In the wintertime, or even after this call, if it's, super cold outside, like just walk around your outlets with your bare hand and just hover right in front of it, almost touching it, and just see if you feel cold air coming through, right?
Yes, definitely. That definitely is, there's cold air coming through there.
Oh, you can feel that. So you've already done that?
Yeah. It's noticeable. I didn't know that. So how do you fix it? You can insulate those too?
Yeah, right. So, okay. So the blower door is going to be really fascinating, and I can't wait for you to tell me what the numbers come back. But, so I'm looking at these windows. These windows look original. Are these the windows that you still have?
Yep.
Okay. And
they're mostly original windows. Yeah.
Oh, they are actually original. That's amazing. And so it's amazing because they're beautiful and they've lasted for 100 years. How leaky do you think they are?
I mean, you can feel it walking by. It's noticeably cooler.
Okay.
Standing next to the windows.
Okay. So I have such mixed feelings about this. Like we're gonna immediately jump into like the weeds where I start getting like stuck. So how, I guess I should say, like what is your personal appetite for putting in a very small amount of work, like on a twice a year basis, in order to, I guess, save a pile of money, right? Like some people say, you know what, I want to do the right thing, but I'm pretty freaking lazy. Like, so even me in my house right now, which you saw just briefly, just a little bit, I could get way better heating performance from my house if I just did window quilts, right? And then at nighttime.
Yeah.
And, so the windows I have are passive solar windows. So, I don't want to put a film on them, but at nighttime, if I just nailed some blankets up, on the window, I would lose so much less heat overnight. Right. But I'm lazy and I don't do it, I'm lazy and I don't do it. But if I did, I would save some heat. But because the house I have is fairly efficient and I only burn a cord to a quart and a half all year, the amount of loss that I'm facing, I just deal with it. I just chalk it up to just a quality of life thing, and I don't really want to mess with it. You're in a situation where you have a lot of windows that probably don't face south, and even if they did face south, they might still be really costly to replace, especially right now with materials being as expensive as they are. So, like, what would you be excited to spend, like, say 3 hours or 2 hours twice a year and not eventually plan on replacing your windows? Because the thing is for 6, 7, 8 months out of the year, these 100-year-old windows are freaking awesome, right? Mm-hmm. Like, they're pretty, they're original. And when you think about the embodied energy that it costs to like replace a thing, like, they're, when thinking about trying to take care of the planet, it may be better for the planet to just simply never replace these windows, but the compromise is time for you, So, when thinking about the kind of lifestyle that you want to live, do you want the house to be a bit more passive and hands off? Or, are you willing to, deal with looking through, a really clear, but, still a little bit opaque film that you would say put around all the windows of your house? Like,
so you're talking about the stuff you use the heat gun to.
Yeah. But I recently learned that the stuff that I think of when I think of that stuff and the stuff that you buy is like junk. There's actually some really good stuff. Oh. And, a friend that works at a nonprofit stayed over, turned me on to it. And I don't know the brand name offhand, but apparently it's pretty common. And what it is there's either there's a track system that you either install and kind of paint in place so it matches the windows. And and with the track, you put the piece of film on. And then when you put this bead, it's like almost like a plastic rope in the track, almost like it's a window screen. It tightens and it looks almost as clear as a window.
Huh.
And it like looks good and it's easy to do. And they last like decades. Like you take it off and you put it back on, right? And so, you know, and
you can pull the whole track out.
So yeah, so you can either pull the track off, and so your windows would look just like they are in this picture, or you can leave the track on, but either buy the track that's a color that's attractive, or you could like paint it to match if it was like on like a drywall or a piece of painted trim. And it's funny, I actually have a piece of track right here now that I'm thinking about it, right close to where I'm at. And I'll send you a picture of it after this because I don't want to rip it off, because I've left it on my house because I liked it so much that I might actually use it. And so anyway, I feel like I'm talking forever about this stupid window film. But
Well, yeah, that sounds great. This is actually one of the things I really wanted to ask about is window treatment, like sealing up those windows, because I know we're losing a lot of heat through the windows.
So yeah, and so you know, like I don't understand. I don't know exactly what the name of the product was, but what I can say for a fact is I've seen it in person. I had it installed on 2 of my windows, and I was so shocked that the crap that you buy at Home Depot for like $6 a window that's disposable, it's junk. It's simply junk. And the stuff that I saw, like, for example, like you could carry on a conversation with somebody through the window and they would look fine to you. Like, that's how good it looked. Like, I could see the birds outside in the tree. Right?
Huh.
And I was amazed. And it's kind of a game changer because it looked so good that I wonder if this isn't something that could be like a real solution for people. Because, you know, I don't know how many windows that you have in your home, but I saw what looked like 20, you know, just kind of going through the pictures. And a lot of them are original. They're beautiful.
Yeah,
and
some of them are upgraded.
Okay, I did notice that.
Yep. So now this is in the basement.
Yep.
So the basement's finished.
Oh, the basement is finished. So I was looking at the basement. Okay.
It's mostly finished, yeah.
Okay. Everyone's going to be jealous, and I'm insanely jealous, and I'm just going to go past this picture.
I know.
Yeah, I was like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, I'm so jealous.
It's amazing for the winter here.
Okay, so this is the basement, and so these are windows that are nearly at ground level to the outside, right?
Well, yeah, the big egress window, that's slightly below grade.
Okay, so it has those has that kind of little bump out, so you can get out. And is it so about how far below grade?
Well, let's see. I'm sitting right in front of it right now, so let's see.
Oh, this is awesome.
About 2 feet.
Okay, that's not too bad. And so this other window is at grade or just a little below?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, with I have so many different thoughts. So with air leaks right off the bat, you know, the biggest offender. So my house is actually, it's a story. I'm going to call it 2 stories, but the second floor, because I stick built I don't think I have any photos I can show easily. Because I stick built the rafters for the second floor, I put the collar tie, which became the ceiling on the second floor, at just under 10 feet. And so from where I'm standing now in quote unquote the basement, or like the walkout, which is the first floor, to that spot, when I factor in the floor, you know, what is that? That's going to be almost 20 feet, right? So if I've got an air leak down at ground level where I'm at right now, if you have an air leak down here, I'm just, hypothetically, well, you wouldn't because it's below grade, but
Yeah.
if you have an air leak around this window, like say this window doesn't shut all the way and the little gap in the window right here lets a little bit of air come in, what can happen is it creates just like suction. It's almost like a chimney pipe. It just sucks air from the lowest point to the highest point. And the bigger the difference, the bigger the differential. So for me, it's like 20 feet. I sealed the hell out of the house that I'm in right now. And I can still find a few spots where I feel like the air just, I feel little pinholes of air still getting through. And that's with me taping every joint on the outside of the house. And
Wow.
that's because I've still got some unfinished sheetrock upstairs, and there's a couple places on my house where you've got the credit card trick, where I can if I was up in the attic shining a super bright flashlight down into an unfinished bathroom, I might see a little bit of light, right? And that tiny little bit of air gap, the tiny bit of air gap creates just suction on the house. And it's so much suction actually that if I'm not careful with the wood stove on the first floor, when I go to light the wood stove, if I don't let the flue get a really good draft going, it'll actually pull air down the flue into the house.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wait, so this suction effect is worse the lower you get in the house?
Yeah, well, so it's worse the higher up, the higher up in the house with the warmer air, right?
Oh, okay.
And so
Sure.
so for example, going back to this picture, let's see here, going back to the street view just for 1 second. So for example, if you had an air leak here,
Yeah.
around this little header, this like little beam of some kind. If you had an air leak there, letting a little bit of air come out, but you had, but the only other place that cold air was coming in was right here, for example. It's a shorter trip, which would be bad if the hole was huge. But if you're able to pull in air from really low, if air is going to get in from really low down here, and the temperature differential is higher, then it's in my experience it can create really intense suction. So if I open a downstairs window and I open it a crack or 1 inch exactly, the amount of pressure that I feel coming out of that window is a little higher than if I open one of the upstairs windows that's only 6 feet below, where I'm pretty sure I've got an air leak. And it's kind of a fascinating thing. It almost can create like a current in your house where it's just constantly, just the cold air is trying to get in any way it can to make up that vacuum because you've got the hottest air, right, trying to escape. And so and if your attic was sealed totally tight, but you only had a little bit of an air leak around, say this window here from ground floor to here or something like that, I believe the temperature differential from the from the point where the air is escaping out versus where it's coming in is just a little bit lower. And so that's why I think that the taller it is, the more time you've got for a bigger differential, more heat to be further, more heat to be higher up,
Yeah.
and it just to create a stronger vacuum. But it's
Right.
powerful. And being able to seal some of these older windows up, I think will be a big deal. I think it'd be a big deal to try to find a way to air seal them. And I feel like your only option is going to be being willing to put a film on them, whether it's disposable or like one of the attractive modern ones I've talked about, or eventually replacing them. And it just sucks because they're cool, They're cool, and they're original, which will matter probably during our lives to people who think it's awesome. And they've worked all this time, and they fit with the home, they fit with the style, and it's going to cost. I mean, I'm making this up, but I've heard people tell me quotes of between $350 to $600 per window to be replaced by a crew that does it professionally. And maybe that crew is awesome and they do a great job and they're fast at it, but maybe they're not great, and they could introduce different inefficiencies while they're just trying to hack through the job,
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you've thought about this at all, I'm just kind of curious what your thoughts are about a film versus replacing the windows.
Yeah, I think I'd be totally interested in doing the film thing. I was only aware of the cheap stuff,
Correct.
and I had heard that it didn't really work that well. So I was thinking that I needed to do something like get insulating shades. It's kind of like what you were talking about,
Yep.
nailing the quilt. That was kind of where I was leaning. But yeah, if there's a high quality film we could put on, that sounds like a great solution. Because we don't really have the budget to replace all the windows right now.
Okay. I mean, like I said, I have no idea what it would cost for you, because I feel like it's a regional thing, and what kind of windows you'd have to put in, because you're probably going to be subject to some kind of codes there.
Yeah, actually, the numbers that you're quoting are lower than what I've heard people say.
Oh my gosh. Well, it's been a while. So your numbers were more than 600 per window?
Yeah, I mean, I had heard, around 1,000 per window
Okay.
But I don't know. I haven't looked into it seriously, because it just kind of wasn't something we could do right now.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I'm glad we know.
I don't know how accurate that is, but
I think it's probably pretty accurate. Well, especially now, everything in my brain since the last time the last time I bought replacement windows was in 2015 and 2017. So I'm kind of, I'm a little rusty. I'm a little rusty in this regard. So yeah, $1,000 a window. And I mean, I don't know how many windows you have, but I saw what looked like probably 20 total, including some kind of oddball ones that are great. They're cool, because you would never get a house in these days with that kind of thing,
Right. So, I mean, what about curtains and those cell shades and that kind of stuff?
So, okay. So I had in 2009 to 2010, I was living in a house with a few other people. It was a house that we built, passive solar. We used non-low E glass. And so the non-low E glass meant we got like 76% of the sun's heat in, which was awesome. But it lost so much more at night, because it did not have that two-way coating, right? And so what would happen is that the windows would actually get pretty cold at night. You could feel the heat just getting sucked out of the house. So we actually built window quilts, and they weren't super high end, but they're probably as thick as like a pretty decent medium weight blanket for a bed. And I feel like it took the windows, which were probably R1 or like R1.5, and made them R5. I'm making these numbers up just off the cuff, but it was transformative. It would go from the point where we would go to bed and the house would be 70 degrees with the wood stove fully filled up with wood and ready for a night burn. And instead of waking up with the wood stove, barely warm or cool to the touch, and the house being 62 degrees or 60 degrees with no window quilts, you would go to bed at 70 degrees with a full wood stove. You'd wake up with a cool wood stove in a house that's like 67, right? But it's dark though. So the first one up's got to open them, and it takes, 30 seconds. But the thing about that particular setup is that was in a passive solar house that only had windows on the south side. And so we had one big track. It was basically, it was very similar to an Earthship. And so we had one track, and you could just run the front of the building. It was actually not too dissimilar to something like this. And you could just you just split the thing in three ways, and then and hang up the window quilts, and you're done. And we tried rolling them up, and we tried just using huge hooks, between every third window and just putting them on the hooks. And we eventually did the hooks because it's so much faster. And it was freaking awesome. But when you've got just one wall of glass and no other window quilts to deal with, I feel like it's really easy. For your situation, I think that, seeing how there's just so many windows in this house, it would be awesome. But if you, so just looking at the, you kind of bay window here, you could do a double here. That's, you could do a double wide quilt, and you could do two smaller ones on the sides. But the thing is that you probably need to find some way to Velcro or magnet, the quilts down, because if you're doing this many, you're going to be running through and doing them really fast every evening, right? Once the sun goes down. And if you don't make sure that it's really well sealed on the bottom, around the entire perimeter, that kind of high-low convection current, I think, is going to, invalidate 60 to 80% of the benefit of the quilt, because it's just going to create this like chimney and just suck the, cold air in the, hot air is going to get sucked in the top of it while the cold air falls out of the bottom, right? So I love window quilts, and you can totally do it. It's just from a standpoint of having used them and lived with them, realistically speaking, it's going to be a chore. And this is a situation where maybe if you've got a handful of really large windows next to each other, you could do quilts that will bridge that gap. They'll bridge multi windows at a time. But if you're in a situation, I would never take the time to make one for the bathroom, I'm just talking for myself. I saw some kind of smaller ones in the kitchen, I think, we
have some large windows in the kitchen facing south. I don't know if there's a picture of that here.
Let's see here. There are actually some kitchen photos. Okay.
So yeah, you can see we're looking at the south side of the house now.
Okay. This is great. This is great that this is the south.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was there's like extra bump outs that were added to the house later.
Okay.
And so actually when I mentioned in the email that I have this dream of attaching a greenhouse, I think that would be up on the balcony there on top.
I see. So kind of right here.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm trying to visualize right now. I see, your power drop is a little bit in the way of the first floor. This is
right. I meant like up on the second floor. So like walking out that door on the balcony into the greenhouse.
How deep is this balcony?
It is about 6 feet deep.
Okay, it looks deeper. I can't tell right here. I can't tell if that's 12 or 8 feet or something like that. But it's about 6 feet, you think?
Yep. And across it's 12, I think.
This is interesting.
12 or 13.
Okay, this direction.
Yep.
Okay, and how is it flat or is it pretty sloped?
It's pretty flat. It's actually a little bit too flat, and water doesn't flow off it like it should.
I have so many ideas right now. So if you just I'm visualizing several options. So if you kind of follow my little mouse cursor, it's probably the fastest way to do this. I could potentially see a situation where you could do, you could make an A-frame. You can match this angle right here. See the angle? It looks like the angle is actually a 12-12. I think it's a 12-12. You could do a 12-12 here, that kind of did this, right? And it could kind of mimic the same shape to kind of keep everything symmetrical. You can do it out of polycarbonate panels, so that way it actually like looks kind of nice, not just like plastic film. And you could have it so that way, I'm trying to think, you might need to deconstruct this rail and turn this railing into, a little bit of, treated lumber wood framing. And you could then make this whole side, kind of clear polycarbonate panel. And so, for example, this website, Greenhouse Megastore, what a cheesy name, is where I get my polycarbonate from. Did I spell that correctly? Let's go to Google. Greenhouse Megastore. And despite everything going crazy, these prices have not gone as high as you would think. They've only gone up maybe 30%. Polycarbonate. Okay, so
when you said a 12-12, what does that mean?
okay, so a 12-12 would be the roof pitch, right? So let's go check this out. Roof pitch chart. This is perfect. So you can see, actually here, this is even better. Actually, no, that's not better. It's not telling us. So you can see in this original drawing here, I'm trying to make it big. Sorry about that. Pinterest, I hate you. So you can see right here that you see the numbers where it says 12, 12, 45
it's a little bit
degrees.
small.
Yep. Oh, it's
Okay,
a little
I
small.
see it. 12-12. Yep.
Yeah, so
45
12, 12, 45 degrees. So, so for every foot you go horizontally, it's going to rise or fall 1 foot.
Oh, okay. So that's the rise over run.
Yep, it's rise over run would be
Gotcha.
12, 12 or 1 to 1, right?
Yeah.
Which is a 45-degree angle. And 12, 12 is awesome for shedding snow. I mean, some people would consider it to be almost snow-free all year because it's just so steep that only in very rare or very specific circumstances is it likely to hold snow. And I mean, I've seen snow on a 12-12, but it is rare. It's mostly on shingles. If you're using a polycarbonate roof, if you're using, I'm looking for clear polycarbonate, but if you're using these kind of polycarbonate panels,
Yeah.
it would be just really smooth. So you would be able to, it looks like this, right?
Right.
It's pretty attractive actually. And it would look like this. It's so smooth that it would just shed the snow instantaneously. And so the greenhouse you would even be able to take advantage of some solar heat, even in cloudy weather in the winter inside the greenhouse, because it would always be shedding the snow.
Yeah.
And so just to kind of play with this for just a second, so I'm just kind of making this up. You said it's 14 feet wide, roughly.
Yeah, 13 or 14.
13 or okay. Let's just say it's 14 just for fun. And so half of that would be 7. And so you could hypothetically buy these sheets here. And you said about how deep is it? 6 feet?
6 feet. Yep.
6 feet. So hypothetically, you would need 3 of these sheets for each side, which would give you, that would give you a 12-12 roof pitch that would be 6 feet deep and 8 feet long on both sides of the kind of the attached greenhouse. It's very lightweight, so you don't have to be super worried about the construction being kind of sketchy for the first floor.
Mm-hmm.
And the total cost of that would be, you get a 5-pack for $200 plus shipping.
Huh.
And so you only need 6 total for just the roof. So what you do is you'd buy 2 5-packs, and let's just pretend like we're doing it. And the extra sheets you can use for the end wall, right? For the end wall siding, or whatever would be below your whatever would be, depends on how high you wanted to make. It depends on how high up you want this wall to be, but you can do this wall in the same polycarbonate sheeting, right?
Right.
And I mean, we're just making this up. I won't fill this. We'll make the time to fill this out. But in my experience with Greenhouse Megastore, if it's this easy ship stuff, well, there you go, $50, apparently.
Wow. That's a lot more affordable than I expected.
Yeah. So let's just round up. Let's just say that all the hardware and everything for the plastic sheeting is going to be, I'm making this up, $1,000, right? For you to have this little greenhouse space up there.
Yeah.
And you could do the whole thing out of dimensional treated lumber, 2x4s, and you could even do a lot of the strapping out of, 2x4s that you cut in half. And this could be really inexpensive. It's not very big, but that's why it's super inexpensive. And in the summer, in the wintertime, it's going to be 110 degrees in there in the wintertime. You can open that door and have that, heat just blast into your house.
Huh. So, but something I wanted to ask about was how worried do I have to be about moisture being held against the outside of the house?
So, okay. So this is like the age old question, right? And so you are in a situation here where because this greenhouse is not, it's not on the soil, it's not on the dirt. It's only going to really be able to take advantage of whatever volume of moisture you give it, right? But by watering it and the volume of moisture that can be released from whatever surface area you have that will evaporate inside there. And so, is this greenhouse going to freeze at night in the deep winter? Yes. So, it's not, unless you heat it, it's not really going to have any way to store that heat because it's not tied to the earth. And even if you have, a bunch of jugs and stuff up there full of water, which you can't have too much of because we don't know how much weight this addition can support. It's one of those situations where I just can't imagine it being that big of a problem. So right now, the outside of your home is already dealing with the outside craziness, right? Like the driving rain and all that kind of stuff. And so, if you were going to just be plugging a big greenhouse like this, connected to the dirt, and you were going to be, it would just be taking, 100 gallons, a month of water out of the ground and like letting it evaporate and then cling to all the surfaces, including the side of your house permanently. I think that might become a problem for any exposed wood or anything that was going to be able to be accessible by that, constant barrage of moisture. But up here with the greenhouse that's not going to have that much water in it to begin with, I can't imagine it's going to be that much of a problem. And not only that, a lot of the moisture in the deep winter time is going to wind up just condensing and freezing to the inside of these panels on the inside. It's just going to get locked up. And then once it thaws, when the sun comes back out, it's going to just, run back down the sides. And you can have little weep holes that let it just drain off onto the existing roof, or you can find a way to collect that back into, your planters or something.
So yes, that's really helpful. So it's kind of an advantage in some ways that it's elevated off the ground.
Yep. Let's see. I'm just going to search the Google and see if anyone has done anything even remotely similar. So the polycarbonate would have that kind of a look to it, kind of clear. Let's see here.
So could the structure even be made out of like EMT conduit?
Totally. I think it could. And with EMT conduit, check this out. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, Home Depot website. Sorry, everybody. They already make 45s in EMT.
Oh, nice.
So you could use these up top, hypothetically, right? Because this comes off at a 45 for your conduit. So this would be the ridge, the peak, the top of the triangle. You could use something like this.
Yep.
And then I know that they make another, they make the other angle you would need for the other side. This would be, you can totally do this out of EMT almost entirely. And so the Emt Benders, if you've never used one, they're really kind of fun. And I have the 1/2 inch and the 3/4, and for that structure, I would make it out of probably 3/4. I would think about it and play around with it, but 3/4 EMT is pretty tough stuff. Wood might be a little cheaper, a little faster because the cost of materials is up right now. But the bender for 1/2 inch is only $40 at Home Depot. I call it Home Creepo. So if I say that, that's what it is. And the 3/4 inch is $50. And so what you would do is I'm sure you can find videos on YouTube about how to use this, but this is how it works, right? And so if you see here on the side of this thing, it tells you what angle it is. So what you would do is you would mark with a Sharpie on the EMT, you mark, you mark, say 24 inches from the end for whatever reason, you put a little mark there, and then you put those lines, you put those lines, depending upon how the bender is set up, you put either the lines or the point wherever it needs to be in relation to your mark, and just read the instructions, and you can bend it, and you can bend a perfect angle every time with these things. It's amazing.
So where would you be bending this? Like from up on the side up to that the roof angle?
Yeah, the side of the roof angle. Although it might be possible for you to find an EMT connector that's already that size. Right? You might actually be able to find EMT elbow that's like, the 15 degrees or whatever that is, or the 30 degrees. I don't actually know what the angle would be offhand to get you back straight. But you could.
So how about wind resistance up there? Because I know that it'd be pretty exposed there. We get pretty strong winds from the west.
So I think that you can absolutely shear up that against the wind, and it's going to probably be a combination of how you built it and what you built it out of. And for example, let's see here, Farmer's Friend. So I actually have a what used to be really inexpensive high tunnel that I bought from this company, and I really like them. And this material looks like EMT. It's just not EMT. And so these structures are actually pretty big. And so check this out. So see this diagram right here. So these things are meant. This particular tunnel, it's meant to be portable, and it's meant to kind of be like picked up and moved fairly easily. And so they're pretty lightweight, and they can catch a lot of wind, right? And so with the combination of a handful of ground anchors that are screwed in, which you'll have access to attaching your structure into, somewhere around here, you're going to be able to access something pretty structural that you can, anchor into, along with being able to anchor into the existing home to some degree. So you see these kind of, angled bars going down to the ground. What these bars do is they connect to the second rib in from the end. It connects near the bottom, and you run them up on this like 30-degree angle and connect them up here. And one on each side on both ends of this greenhouse, it's rated for like 100-mile-an-hour winds.
Oh wow!
and I've been in mine and some pretty strong winds, and just that tiny bit of sheer reinforcement of these kind of horizontal pieces make them rock solid. It's incredible. And so you could hypothetically do something like that, where you could do sheer bracing like this inside of if you just hypothetically imagine plunking this is actually not that dissimilar in size, actually. Imagine making this a little bit steeper, for the 12-12, not that it has to be, but since you found those EMT connectors, bonus, right? So imagine just plunking this structure or something like it up there, minus the door. You can do, either crosses on the sides for strength, or you could do something like that where you've just got a running band that finds a way to connect a corner of the structure to another corner of the structure, preferably on a diagonal. But it doesn't need to be all the way. It doesn't need to be all the way like you see like an old like an old timey West water tower where it's got the big giant wood timbers and all the crosses, you know. That's what that's for. That's for all that sheer strength, all that sheer bracing. So, you know, you can find a way to do little corners like this or little corners like this, or, you know, tie this to there. And as long as you put enough of those features all around, I think it could handle any wind that would not be catastrophic.
Nice.
I'm trying to see if there's any more
Well,
examples here.
this is great. I'm glad I brought this up because it sounds like this idea is not as crazy as
It's not as no, it's not crazy. Like just the, looking at your home, what I would watch out for is there's that style of you could do it that style with like the 45, which I think is just kind of cool because it will match the kind of Gothic look in a way of the existing home. And, I'm usually the last person people go to talk about aesthetics, but I do think about it contrary to what people think. And, the 45 would be kind of cool to kind of match this angle, and it would give you a lot of headroom. So you could do like a lot of hanging plants up in here. And I actually don't think it would even be as high as this peak. I think it'd probably stop like right about here on your existing home, on the existing house. So it'd be kind of like a cool, like, kind of a cool double pitch. The other option, well, actually, now that I think, the other option would be you could do something that came out and then, well, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't like it as much. Because I saw, you could do something like this against your existing house and have it
sloping to the south
and have it go out and slope to the south. But I just feel like, I feel like in your situation, your context, you might as well just take advantage of the aesthetic that already exists. And the fact that this polycarbonate panel is, one, pretty durable, attractive, not that expensive, and just kind of match it. And I think that would give you the biggest room, because if you slope it to the south, somewhere near the south, which is your prime real estate, you're gonna start getting into low headroom, right? And so, I'm sold on the idea, just of looking at it from just this photograph and knowing what you've got on doing the 12-12 pitch, attached thing up here. What I would encourage you to watch out for is, in fact, here, let me make a little, you won't see it, but I'm writing a little list right here. The things I would watch out for on the second floor greenhouse. Okay, so it's not a greenhouse unless it's heated. I'm always remembering that because I get yelled at by actual farmers.
Okay.
So I guess this would
what's
be
it called then? It's just a passive.
Yeah, I don't know. Attached. I don't know what we would call it. Let's just call it a greenhouse. Screw the farmers. Yeah. So things I would watch out for would be avoid. Let's see here. How would I say this? Be careful with anchors on the floor, right? With anchors violating the watertight seal on that existing roof. Now, what that can be as simple as if you do have to drill down through this existing thing, you can do there's a million things you can do. The best thing is to buy a let's see here. So in steel roofing, they've got screws that have washers that have plastic seals. See that? Right? But you can make your own out of regular washers and going to the hardware store and raiding their rubber O-ring section, right? And so what you can do is, if you are going to penetrate with some kind of an anchor through your bottom plate, when you're anchoring your structure to the existing house, you can do something where you, so you can silicone, you can add some silicone seal inside the greenhouse wherever you're going to penetrate through. So that way, when you drill a board down, or whatever it's going to be to the existing structure, that board smashes that silicone, so it creates a waterproof seal around that penetration. Or if you're using this polycarbonate stuff, you can actually do a thing where you can, if you're doing polycarb on the ground, if you're doing the EMT conduit on the ground, which maybe you can do, you could find a way where you could potentially make, you could take a gasket like this and you can actually put it on the bottom side of whatever you're going to be screwing to the existing roof, right? Mm-hmm. So definitely watch out for not introducing a water leak. Now, granted, it's only going to be a leak from water that gets into the greenhouse, which won't be that much, hopefully, but it could, it can add up a little bit on, crazy weather where it's super hot and then gets super cold. And while the dew point is still pretty low while the weather's getting cold. So, while the weather's warming up or getting cold, depending upon the season. So definitely watch out for that. 2, I would watch out for trying to find a really convenient way to seal to the existing home, right? Mm-hmm. And this looks like this is actually a pretty flat plane. Like I don't, so this guy right here, this little, I call this a ladder. I call it a ladder or like a fascia board. There's a million terms for it. Is that pretty flush with this little bump out right here?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, that's great actually. So what you could do once you had like the relative size of the structure, the size of the greenhouse figured out, you could make a treated lumber frame that you could kind of like lean up to the house. And it would, it would lean up to the house and then it would, go up and then over and then down. And that would give you something structural that you can attach to the existing home that you then can now run and either attach your EMT to. I guess you could make it out EMT too, but I'm trying to think of how you're going to seal this little corner down here. Although I think you might only have a little spot right here where the existing triangle is exposed. You could like stick your arm through. Like the greenhouse, polycarbonate greenhouse might have like a gap here. So a gap to the existing roof. I can't think of an easy way to describe it, but it wouldn't be that bad to seal. You might maybe use plywood there, maybe. Yeah. And paint the plywood to kind of conform with the roof or something like that. But I don't think it'd be that bad. And I don't know, you've got a lot of little details to figure out like that, but it's not something that some gaskets, so there's a lot of things you can do. Like I don't like using spray foam like on the outside of a house. What I mean by that is I would be reticent to just attach a frame to this to give you the house side of the greenhouse and then just like spray foam, spray foam everything tight. I'd be reticent to do that because it may not really ever easily come off of whatever you're putting it on. Mm-hmm. But what you can do is, if you do want to use spray foam because the geometries are just really crazy and you can't seal it with something like this. Let's see here. Like this. Like you can buy things like this. This is just like it's like a rubber gasket. And actually here, this is even better. So garage door hardware is like freaking awesome, right? Garage doors are dirt cheap, and the hardware's cheap, the handles are cheap, and everything's cheap. And for garage doors, you can buy, these are all these different gasket options that exist for you to be able to seal with something that is permanent and high quality and can be removed without damaging your existing home at all. You can buy all these different kinds of seals and rolls, and you can like you can use those screws that have that gasket on it to attach these kinds of gaskets to the house. And then when you drill your board to it, when you drill your board or your frame to the house, you'll pinch this and it will be watertight and airtight. I don't see
Yeah, that's a great tip.
I don't see an exact gasket that I like, but just simply going to the hardware store and like looking at like the garage door gaskets, there's so many things you can buy. And so check this out. Like this is a really popular gasket I've seen, something like this. And so this is made to be like an L shaped. What you can do is you can fold it on itself so it gets twice as thick, and then attach it to the house.
Okay.
Yeah. And so you can take gasket that you can just find affordably and you can just like make it huge and make it like freaking an inch thick. And then when you compress it down, it seals the house.
And then, I mean, how do you get pressure against the house? So it's not actually going to be anchored to the house, right?
Well, so whatever frame that you were going to be attaching to the house, I would find a way to use some kind of a structural anchor. Let's see here.
Okay, so you would go right into that.
Yeah, I would. I would, but I would only do it like maybe a half dozen times, and only where it matters, like, so there's probably a header right here above these windows and above that door. You can probably get into that. Well, it's probably going to be, a few inches down from, wherever the roof line is. And, you can use a little drill and you can kind of probe to see if you can find it, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be there. And you can also attach to this fascia board right here. That's probably pretty structural, but the real meat that you're going to get into is probably going to be right here on this guy. And what you can do is they make, depending upon what you're trying to do, they make structural timber screws. These are also my favorite thing in the world. So there's a bunch of different brands you can buy. And actually, let's just go to Google. I'm trying to use this hippie browser called Ecosia because they plant trees apparently, and they're all about privacy, but I can never find anything, and it sucks. Let's see here. Okay, so there's a million different kinds of these things. And they come in all different sizes, and some of them are freaking like 2 feet long, right? And they're actually an engineered product, and so they're actually engineered to be strong enough that you can use them for structural purposes.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can buy a box of these. Here's 6-inch ones. It all depends on what you need. These are the most common kind. And it comes a little bit, and these are 8 inches long. And you can use these to tap from your greenhouse structure into whatever, beefy material you can get your hands on, right?
Yeah.
And there's just a million ways to do it. And you can even buy these things, and you can even make your own washers if you want to try to seal it when you go to tighten it down. There's a million things you can do. I now use stuff like these screws for most things when I'm building a house, because you can either put 10 nails into something, or 6 big screws, or one of these.
Huh.
And so it reaches a point where even though you're paying like 50 cents per screw, it starts to add up, and it starts to give you a lot of savings.
Huh. Cool. Yeah.
And okay.
Oh, well, the other thing I was going to ask about, I'm thinking about the fascia board and how I need to repaint it. I wanted to ask you about your thoughts about natural finishing and your finishing thoughts in general.
Okay. Okay. Woo, big topic. I love it.
Okay.
So,
well, I know we're also over an hour, so
yeah, it's no problem. So yeah, it's fun. Yeah, we're over an hour, and I've hardly even covered the grid down stuff that I already wrote down. I love it. Okay, I don't know what's on the existing wood, right? And if I've learned that lime wash and lime plaster will cover almost anything. It's just, it will adhere much, much worse to anything synthetic, anything, like just anything synthetic or anything that's not some kind of a natural material, right?
Yeah. So it seems like all our trim was probably oil painted to start with, and they've tried to put latex paint on top of it that
Okay.
is peeling off.
So I have put lime paint and lime plaster on almost any surface that like almost any surface that you can imagine. And if you're patient with it and you put enough coats on, it works. However, being that's outside and that it's outside and it's going on something unknown, like me just, going and trying to just offer what I think is like the most reasonable advice, it would probably just be to buy some crappy, probably plastic or oil-based product and to try to go over whatever they did. However, if this was indoor stuff, I would be going hard on the natural finishes, like hard.
Okay.
Now, lime plaster on the outside, if you actually did if you did a lime plaster, then finished it with painting lime onto it on the outside, that's like a 500-year finish outdoors. It's agnostic to the elements, and I shouldn't say agnostic, but it's very, very, very durable and might need little more than like a tiny touch up, only where the house cracks. This look here, this picture, this actually looks somewhat similar to the walls inside my house. Somewhat similar. It can be very attractive.
So you put the plaster right onto like a sheathing. Like
it's not even plaster. I'm actually mixing lime with lime powder with water in a bucket and painting it on with brushes. And I'm going right on sheetrock. You can go right over sheetrock, masonry, wood, tile. You can go over all that stuff. They say you can't go over sheetrock, but I'm on the third house where I've done that, and it's awesome.
Huh.
And a product like this that says lime paint, I promise you this is fake. This is like some plastic garbage probably. Well, lime plaster. If it's coming from a big box store though, they're using lime as a term of endearment, but it's probably a plastic product. It should literally just be lime and water with a pigment if you wanted it to be colored. And it is pure white. It is so white when the sun hits it, your house glows. It's hard to explain. I find it interesting that a lot of products in this day and age are actually trying to mimic what things used to be with natural materials and healthy. They're trying to mimic that with synthetic products today. We live in strange times.
Yep.
We live in strange times. So now, if you did want to experiment with natural finishes on the exterior of your home, see, for all I know, this is a pigmented lime finish that's ancient, and it's been just lasting forever. I don't really know.
I don't actually know if the stucco is painted or not.
Yep. Yeah, you might be able to tell. So if you go out there with like a little screwdriver or a little kitchen knife, you can scratch at it, and if it looks like there's like a gel coat or like a coat on it. And then underneath that, it looks like it's kind of fibery, like some ceramic, then it's probably been painted. If it just seems kind of cementy and fibery, then that's great. That means that it's just like it's just like a stucco product. It's probably largely some kind of masonry product or some kind of a plaster. And if it starts to degrade, you could lime right over that or do whatever you want. But it's probably like a lifetime finish as it is, which would be amazing.
Yeah.
Which would be totally.
It does crack. I mean, I have to get out there and I've tried a few different things to fill the cracks.
Interesting. Okay, if it's cracking, that makes me think that it is actually a plaster product. And I would, so the downside with the lime is that it starts off as like pure optical white, and you can tint it any color you want or almost any color you want within kind of like an earth tone regime with natural pigments. The problem is it's it's like a one-time thing, right? Like you have to be laboratory precise with your measurements of your lime powder to your pigment when you mix
Yeah.
it with water to make sure you can always match, or you can do what I've done in the past and make a lifetime supply in one time, right? And you're gonna have you're somewhere in your basement. You're gonna have 5 5 gallon buckets full of the exact same color that you mixed, and in 10 years, when you bust into the third bucket, you just got to put the paddle on the drill and you know, whip it up, and then go and put it on, and it'll match. You know,
Huh. Yeah.
um, it's funny when you have to think long term, and not to like go down on a ridiculous tangent, but in like Rome and in the Vatican, lime is like a whole industry there, and I did a little bit of research on it years ago when I was learning all this, and there are literally families like in some of those ancient parts of the world that for multiple like 5 6 7 generations, their family's job has been to take lime powder that they acquire through whatever means that they want for their family, and to like soak it in water for years or decades to a process they call slaking or slacking,
Hmm.
and then using that like family heritage, 5,000 gallons of lime, they go and they re-lime all of like the historical buildings and structures,
Wow.
and to protect them from acid rain, and like the etching of years, because pollution and rain in cities often can pick up pollution and become somewhat corrosive, right?
Hmm.
And I've heard that in some of the oldest buildings and some of the oldest areas in Rome, or like in the Vatican have had like half a foot of lime applied to them in the last 1,000 years,
Whoa.
and that lime actually has become part of the structure of the building, giving it its longevity and its structural strength.
Huh.
Because it's like entombing the whole building in like 3 inches of like rock hard like cement paint, you know.
Sure.
And
Right.
so I'm crazy about lime. However, I'll put it here in our notes. If you want to experiment with it, like this is a $15 experiment that I just would love for you to do in general because it's so fun. You want to get your hands on a bag of Type S hydrated Mason's lime, and I can buy it. Let's see if I can find it. I don't know what S means. Type S hydrated lime. Type S hydrated lime comes in a bag. Boom, right?
Okay.
I can get an 80-pound bag near me for $11. Okay. In fact, I've even purchased this particular product before. This one here. And you can spend 10 15 bucks on a bag of this. And what you do is you take and you experiment with this. You experiment with this lime powder. Outdoor. Cut the top of the bag open outside. Use like a plastic cup, and add 5 plastic cups to a 5 gallon bucket. Fill the bucket halfway full. Mix it, and then that's it. You've made lime paint. It's that fast, right? And you can use it immediately because this lime has already been hydrated. If it was unhydrated lime, you want to let it sit in water and it gets warm and it produces heat. And the longer you let it sit in the water, the more high quality the lime will get for your use as a finish, right?
I
But
see.
if it's pre-hydrated, which is what you want, you can put it on almost immediately. And so, I'm going to give you the same rant I give everybody else whenever I talk about lime, and that is that to buy like organic, whatever the hell that means, like interior paint that has no VOCs,
Mhm.
on the house I'm in right now, I would have used probably 4 5 gallon buckets worth to paint what I've done, and that's not including primers. Let's say let's say I would have used 2 5-gallon buckets of some zero VOC primer, and then 4 5-gallon buckets of whatever hippy dippy, paint they're trying to sell. And when you add all that up, oh my gosh, this is a gallon price for zero VOC.
Yeah.
Holy
Wow.
crap. This is not only is this the gallon price, this is probably still plastic products, right? And so let's say I'm at six 5-gallon buckets. Let's just do this for fun. Oh my gosh.
What?
So that says $90 for whatever this is, but I don't know what that is. That kind of freaks me out. Let's say it's $200. So let's say that I would have spent $1,200 to paint in some zero VOC safe paint, the house I'm in right now.
Yeah.
I did the entire house on. Let me go back to the lime. I did this entire house on 1.5 bags of this lime.
Wow.
So the entire house. So, it might have been closer to 2, but it doesn't matter. It was like $20 in lime. And
That's
so
incredible.
So the 5-gallon bucket can, depending upon how much lime you put in the bucket and how thick of a coating you want it, it's going to be between, $1 to $2 worth of lime in a 5-gallon bucket, depending upon the consistency you want. And when I'm doing lime as a natural finish for inside, I will never buy paint again. I'm all lime all the time now, and I don't care that I'll only have a white color, or a one-off time of a pigment that I make. And I'm completely satisfied with that. And so you're looking at $200 to $300 for 5 gallons versus $1 to $2 is the difference in price. Now, it might be a third coat for the lime to get the coverage you want, or the kind of texture that you want, or the look that you want. And it might even be 4 coats of lime if you're doing it over something that's kind of a darker color, but still, right? Like there's no substitute for a completely natural, mold resistant, like carbon sequestering, finish to the inside of your house, And then the fact that
and you can go right up over top of sheetrock.
Yeah, I go right over sheetrock. Now I've only gone over unpainted sheetrock in new construction in my own homes. However, I've seen people go over existing paint. It's just that the lime needs to stick to some kind of a porous surface. Yeah. And if you don't have a porous surface, you might have to add a porous surface by doing the first couple coats of lime to get it to kind of start sticking, and yeah, I love it. I'm obsessed with it. I love it. And it's the only thing I'll ever use in the future. And so just for fun, since I know you said you want to live in this home for a long time, or you hope to live in it for a long time, and it's a beautiful home. So I understand why. I would play around with ideas for, when you do a remodel, or when you do something, or when you're going to make a change somewhere, just spend, $10, $15 and buy a bag of lime and just play around with it. And, it looks like most of this stuff is already done well enough. You can leave it alone. But if something is going to change, or if you're going to have to change something, screw it, just play around with making your own natural finishes for fun.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Let's see here. So, okay, now we're going back to the grid because I really want to explain at least what my thoughts were, right? So, I've got a pretty good idea of what your house looks like. We have a pretty good idea of what your energy bill is, and without going too far into the weeds, I am personally exceedingly not thrilled with the state of the world in many ways, to put it lightly. And I think that at a bare minimum, all of us should be looking at what we can do. All of us can be looking at what we can do in a medium to protracted length grid down situation, right?
Yeah.
So you've got two different situations here that I'm thinking about. You've got the fact that a grid down means your home can no longer be heated. Now you can hypothetically, keep hot pots of water on your stove that can get you through a night, and that'll be okay. But if we did have a grid down due to a cyber attack, or world governments getting frisky with each other, or something stupid, figuring out how to keep your home safe, your home comfortable, and keeping your house from freezing and accruing damage. So you're all copper down here, right? So I'm looking in your basement. I see a lot of copper. And copper doesn't like to freeze. I've learned the hard way more times than I would like to ever admit. And so we really need to make sure this basement never freezes ever, right?
Yep.
And so because you're in a situation where you've got a natural gas boiler. Now, is the boiler just not pictured in any of these photographs?
Oh, the boiler's in a closet in a different room in the basement.
Okay, that's cool. So my immediate thoughts are, I have my immediate thought for what I would do would be, so if you have a backup generator, you can run your circulation pumps, you can fire your boiler, and you can heat your house, right? Now, I know that. So we're in a situation where you've got two options here. You've got one option. In fact, let me write this down so I don't lose my train of thought. The very first option would be to have an electrician, unless you want to do it low key on your own. Wire in a transfer switch. Now they don't cost that much money, and you might be. I mean, for 500. I mean, I'm making this up. You might be able to find for $500 an electrician that will, for $500, including the switch, will go up to your house and will attach this to the side of your house. Okay. Mm-hmm. And what these do is you have a generator someplace, like say you've got a little generator in your little garage, your little garage area, or your outbuilding. Let's say you've got a little generator in there. And what you can do is on the side of your house, you've got this little thing right here. And if the grid goes down, what you can do is you can, depending upon how it's wired, and this is all up to the electrician that does this. And this is something I would recommend you get an electrician to do. However, they do this all the time. It's pretty standard. You're going to get something like this installed on or in your house. You're going to have your generator out inside your little outbuilding, right? And the grid goes down. Now, is there power in this building?
Yep.
Oh, there is power in this building.
Yep.
Okay, that's interesting. So it's all about the electrician figuring out the best way to do it. But you're going to have a 240 volt generator, which is cheap. These are very common. In fact, I'll show you the one I have. Let's find it here. Home Creepo again. So that's not what I want. Mine looks probably like this. This is pretty much the one I have. So this, I got a generator at Tractor Supply for $350. Okay, $350. It puts out 240 volt, and one of that round plug right there would be the one I would use. But the electrician will figure this out. You get a generator like this, $350, right? Then you add a $500, hopefully $500 all-inclusive, transfer switch in your house, and you can tell the electrician, I'm only going to do like a 4 kilowatt generator, which would be this one. It surges to 4,500 watts, but it runs at 3650, puts out 240. If the grid goes down and you start this generator, open your garage door, start this generator, plug this generator from here into your transfer switch, into your transfer switch plug, right? you flip one switch or two switches, whatever the electrician has you do, guess what? You now have a microgrid set up for your house. And your boiler is going to work now. Your circulation pumps are going to work. Your refrigerators are going to work. Now you're only going to have the total amount of available power that this generator can put out, which this particular one, which, I got for less than $400, is 3.6 kilowatts continuous. Now that's not a lot of power for, a regular house where it's all electric, but for you, you're already cooking on natural gas. Right. So this would give you a basically grid up level of comfort, like permanently, as long as you had gas, right? Now, there are much more expensive ways you can do this. You can go and like buy like a diesel standby generator that's freaking, you can even get a natural gas generator if you wanted. But we're not, the cheapest one here is, actually a good price, $2,300 for this one. You can get this guy for $2,300, and I don't know, let's say another $1,000 for it to be installed by an electrician that you would need, and now you've got basically grid up all the time as long as the natural gas flows, right? But it's $3,000. Okay. So me being the scrappy, cheap bastard that I am, I would go, if I were in your shoes, just for the short-term resilience, thinking like 1 to 5 years, me, my family, whoever, like we're going to be good. I would focus on, an inexpensive generator, maybe a slightly nicer one than this, because these are definitely budget generators. And then a hopefully $500 transfer switch upgrade to the house. Yep. And then I would try to find a source of unethanol fuel, fuel without any ethanol. Or worst case scenario, if you have to use fuel with ethanol because it does kind of degrade over time, I would try to use some kind of a fuel stabilizer.
Okay.
And what I would do if I were in your shoes is I would try to have 25 to 50 gallons just in case, because a generator like this is going to probably consume, what are they saying here? They're claiming you're going to get 9 hours at 50%. That's not great. That is not good efficiency. So that can't be right. That seems really bad. I've run mine far longer than this on a full tank of gas, but I guess that's at 50% constant load. Okay. If we're in a protracted grid down situation, you're probably going to be running it as seldom as you possibly can. So let's just assume it's 5 gallons a day, right? On a small generator like this. Mm-hmm. And so for every day of grid down, have 5 gallons, and and you can use like the old school saying of if you only have one backup, you don't have a backup. So say 10 gallons a day, right? Per day you want to have that. And you're in a situation where you have this inexpensive generator that is still worth a couple $100 even in 5 years from now if we're going to sell it. You've got a transfer switch on your house, which is just a piece of resilience infrastructure. And you're only $1,000 in, hopefully, or let's say you're $1,400 in, and you've got and that includes the fuel cans, and you've got 1 week's worth of fuel, and you're good to go. And maybe once every 6 months, just follow some kind of a preventative maintenance on the generator. Go and let it run for half an hour, and then turn off the fuel so the carburetor empties, or whatever's the best recommended storage condition for it. And guess what? You spent $1,300, and you are no longer afraid of horrific damages to the house during like a prolonged grid down, and you can continue using the natural gas that you've got. The next upgrade to that would be probably buying a very inexpensive natural gas generator like this one maybe, and having an electrician wired up so it would automatically turn on if the grid ever went down. And then you would just see a slight increase in your gas bill during any time where the grid was down. And I mean, let's say this is the $5,000 option, and let's say this is the $1,500 option, right? I'm drawn to recommend this to you just because I think that it gives you. I believe that installing a wood stove and installing a chimney insert shouldn't be that expensive. But by the time you potentially have someone install the sleeve or an insert into the into the existing chimney, and then you bought a $900 stove, maybe you're probably at the same price or more of this generator option. And now you still don't have electricity. You just have a house that doesn't freeze in exchange for you having a cord of wood inside of your little garage.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
Ideally, you would, and so that's how my mind thinks, right? If I thought to myself, boy, 2022 is starting off pretty rough, and I think that often, if I were in your shoes and I was thinking, boy, this is starting off freaking awesome, I would probably opt for trying to figure out how to spend $5,000 in the extreme short, $5,000 the next, 90 to 120 days, do the generator and also install the wood stove, and I think that gives you more resiliency in the short to medium term than not having a wood stove necessarily, but having a $5,000 natural gas standby generator, right?
Yeah.
It's just, it's one of those things where it's all about kind of trying to layer we're trying to layer yourself with as many layers of security as we can without those layers having too much upfront cost or too much maintenance cost over time, right? And so, and all of these systems work better in a home that you have less air leaks with, and that you have, that you've got either better insulation or less air leaks, and that you are also willing to put in the film up for 90 days in the wintertime on most of the windows. And you can put some window quilts on, some or all of them. All of that just makes you even more resilient and more secure, right? And so we're making like an onion that, tastes good, and it's got all these different layers in it. And we're trying to continue adding layers to make it, a fatter onion that gives you more food for the same cutting, and looking at your house and knowing what I know about your house, I think it might be somewhat already insulated, because it seems like it should be. It seems like it is based upon your energy consumption. You already have natural gas, which is the cheapest. It's the cheapest heat source possible. I was actually looking up natural gas, and basically, for the amount of heat that I will get out of a cord of wood, which I would pay almost $300 for if I were to buy, or spend like 30 hours chopping and splitting and stacking on my own, you get for like $35.
Wow. Because
that's how cheap natural gas is in relation to most other forms of heating. Because now, granted, we all want to consume less. It's just everything's relative, and so you consider it kind of a benefit to having bought into a home that has a natural gas hookup. So you already have some of the cheapest heating in the country. You probably have a decent natural gas furnace that's 90 or 95% efficient. We live in a country with maybe 50 or 100 years of natural gas reserves in the ground. You know what I mean? Just thinking all things relative, right? It would seem to me like leaving the natural gas the way it is, using it when you can, how you can, but trying to use less of it in conjunction with trying to have grid up as being more of an option no matter what happens in the future. And then that little greenhouse attachment can let you, get some plants out there. And during the shoulder season, you can do all your starts up there. You can definitely grow some food in the front yard. You can definitely grow some food in the backyard. And you can have a little pocket of low energy, fairly low maintenance, not that expensive, little urban homestead going on, and your total budget, dude, does not have to be that high. Like, it's just, if you make the assumption that natural gas will be up forever, or like, almost never go down, and or you put in the wood stove.
Yeah. So about that wood stove, I mean, is that going to keep the pipes from freezing?
It would.
Or-
I think it would.
Okay.
So if you had to crank it, I do think it would. However, without air circulation of some kind, like, it's going to be, the heat's going to stratify and try to go up and out and not so much down. But just the fact that the upstairs, so if you imagine your home as like a zone, right? Like, the wood stove is going to heat the middle of the sandwich, right?
Yeah.
And that heated middle of the sandwich is going to prevent the outside cold from getting into the basement, right? So you're kind of making like a bubble of wood stove warmth sitting on top of your basement. So it might get cold. It might be 45 degrees down there, but it's not going to freeze. At least I don't think it's going to freeze, unless the air leaks are so severe that it does. But
right.
if you
And I assume we could still run the boiler without the pumps to at least keep the pipes from freezing in the basement.
maybe, I really don't know how that would work. Like, maybe just the boiler itself would idle and maintain the boiler at 200 degrees or whatever it wants to be.
Yeah.
But it just can't circulate. And maybe that works. Maybe just the boiler idling, with a pilot light on, is enough to keep things from freezing if you didn't have any circulation fans. It's just, I just, in my brain, I just see this kind of like marriage of, so for a chimney sleeve, I don't know what the codes are there, but so, fireplaces are like heat extractors, not heat givers, right? They really are. They're really terrible. So this is when I say a sleeve, this is what I'm talking about. It's just a big coil. It's a big galvanized like steel coil.
Yeah.
And you can snake this through your existing fireplace, right? And then this can plug into the wood stove insert. So, it depends on what the company wants to do that you were to hypothetically hire to do it, unless you were going to do it yourself. But, because it's a heating appliance, I'm guessing there's going to be codes that are so restrictive, you're going to be forced to hire a contractor. I'm just guessing that. But depending upon what you're going to do and how tall your chimney is, the contractor might install a sleeve like this or some kind of a liner. And then you're going to get a wood stove insert. And it's going to be a little wood stove that they don't have to be very big. This actually looks pretty similar to mine. And it's a wood stove that's kind of a little, you can get some like this that just kind of plug into the fireplace, but it's a real wood stove, right? It's modern, high efficiency. But then other ones can just kind of stand in front of the wood stove and have the flue go back and go into into that new sleeve they install. But anyway,
Okay.
it all depends on the wood stove that you have. In fact, is it in the pictures?
Yeah.
It's
The
gotta be.
fireplace is.
Okay, it's got to be. Yeah. Blasting through here. It's probably one of the, oh, here we go.
Yep.
It's one of the first things they want to show, of course. Oh, this is really sweet. Okay, because it's on a diagonal, this means this gives you some options here, I think, for different kinds of inserts. So, yeah, you're just gonna get a wood stove insert, and you're just gonna find the right kind of wood stove insert.
Yeah.
And now some of these might be pretty expensive, but I guarantee you that if you shop around, you can probably get one that's actually pretty affordable, and maybe not even $1,000. Because the wood stoves that I like to buy, the kind of cheapy ones that are still EPA approved, so they're still pretty modern, that have the secondary burn chambers. The wood stoves that I buy can be installed low enough they can often slide into an existing fireplace. So let's see here. So like, for example, this one, I'm guessing this thing can be removed and then or shortened, and it can be shoved in there, or you can have it standing in front of the fireplace, which would give much better circulation to the air. So you could have it, standing, you can make a little tile threshold that comes out like this. So that way the wood stove is standing on something that won't burn. And you can have the wood stove stand, with the back of the wood stove nearly where this bronze face is, right?
Oh, okay.
And then as long as the stove is low enough to the ground, it can, come up, make a 90, and then go up into the flue. It might be a little tricky to light it because you're making that double 90 swoop, but once it's running, it should be good. And you can get pretty good you can get pretty good heat, out of it. But some of these inserts though actually have blowers in them. And so a fan, like this. So there's a fan down here. It looks like it's a blower down here, and it's sucking air from the top right here and blowing it out the floor, right?
Okay.
And now this isn't as passive. I mean, you're still going to get a lot of heat out of this if there's no grid. But if there is grid or you have the generator, this is going to just blow a crap ton of heat out the bottom of this thing. And the whole floor is going to be warm. You can run around barefoot, even though the grid's down and it's 0 degrees outside. I might be underestimating the cost of what some of these things will be for you, depending upon how evil the contractors are where you are, or how overworked they are. But I really think that if you shop around and you put in some time, you can not only get a wood stove in here, which would also just be a nice thing to have in the winter, just for fun, even if you're still heating mostly with natural gas. You're going to sit in here with whomever you got some friends over. You're going to be sitting in here with a wood stove in there and a fire cranking, even though you've got the boiler on, because you enjoy it. It's a quality of life thing. And so, for hopefully, 3, 4, 5, 6, hopefully not more, $1,000, you can have, a 1 week worth of grid up on the generator and the backup resiliency of the wood stove. And, I'm sure, even though it's going to be weird to order a cord of wood in downtown St. Paul, I'm sure someone will do it. And you can have a dump truck show up, and right in front of your freaking house, they're going to be, it's a mountain of wood's going to get dumped right in front of your house. And you get to spend, a whole weekend carrying it back on a wagon and stacking it inside your barn. But you'll have the driest wood in the world, because it might be a long time before you use it. And you'll have like a really sweet place, man, like super sweet. And it's not going to be that expensive. Like the thing with old houses that freak people out is they think to themselves, it'll never be efficient. It'll never, like, it's going to just be this vampire that tries to murder me. Right. And that is true with a crappy old farmhouse, but your house is like, it's tight, it's cute, it's not too big. I think it's already got some improvements made to it for energy efficiency. You can make it at least 30 to 40, maybe 50% more efficient with just, stopping the air leaks and doing the window things and doing a handful of other things. And so you have to also understand, if you attach a greenhouse to the back of the house, you're also going to be sheltering whatever surface area that greenhouse encompasses from the outside air. Right? So that greenhouse might...
That's actually our bedroom there, is on the second floor there on the south side.
Well, there you go. So now the bedroom is going to be interacting with a space that might be always 10 or 15 degrees warmer than the outside, or 20 degrees warmer, or really hot in the summertime.
Right.
And since that's your bedroom...
we actually kind of... The past 2 years, we've moved into the basement during the summer.
Okay. That's funny.
It gets really hot up there, actually.
I bet it does. Well, check this out, though. It's going to be all worth it, because in the wintertime, you're going to be able to go up there and sunbathe, the polycarbonate offers enough obfuscation. No one would know if you were wearing clothes. And so you're going to be able to sunbathe in January and February up, from outside your bedroom. It's going to be awesome. It's all about, and you'll have, I do think it'll freeze hard at night because it doesn't have any thermal mass, but whatever, every morning, part of the routine is you're drinking some coffee and you've got your 10 giant plants that are right inside the door, put them out there, and it'll be great. It'd be a super sweet space, and you can totally do it. You can make it look okay, so people don't freak out. It might not even require building code, because you're not cutting into the existing house. It's just a little freaking atrium, You might not need a building permit for that.
That's good to know.
Let's see here. Anything else I wanted to rant about? Okay, I'll only talk about this for like 3 minutes. So the other thing you could do, but I feel like there's not much case for it. So if the chimney situation, if the chimney insert, if the fireplace situation with the stove insert is just a no-go, if it's just a no-go and it's not going to happen, there's two other options. One of them is a pellet stove, and pellet stoves require the grid, but they don't use much power. So you could possibly even run a pellet stove off of one of those little solar backup battery jobbies with the carrying handle. That could possibly be enough power to run. And pellet stoves cost a little bit more than wood stoves, but they use a tiny direct vent, a little 4-inch or 3-inch vent to the outside. And it's so easy to do. You could just buy this little vent and you can probably install it yourself, and it just can plug right outside, and it won't be unattractive outside because it's just a little thing. And so right here, for $300, here's a complete kit for your pellet stove to go outside. Right? So, and this goes outside, and you just have bags of pellets inside the garage. Pellets typically cost just a little bit more than buying cordwood, but for a grid down situation, like it's like a miracle to have heat, So you're happy, you don't mind you paid $50 more for the same amount of heat. And pellet stoves are pretty efficient. They're like $1,000. A pellet stove option might be the way to go. And you could even set it, near where your existing wood stove was, existing fireplace was, and just have this little vent go outside next to that space, right? So pellet stoves are good, and I like the idea of having the resiliency, but that does require a little bit of electricity, but not that much. Like I said, one of these little solar generators. I hate that term because it's not what it is, but these little battery packs. They have little inverters, and I bet you this little thing right here, some little dumb thing like this, would run a pellet stove for like a day or two, right? And you can charge it in your car. So, there's options here. If you were planning on making a backup generator a real part of the system, the other backup thing you can do, so if the pellet stove is a no-go for whatever reason, you just don't want to deal with it, and it's a hassle, or it's too expensive, or the wood stove situation is not good, and you are going to make plans for having a generator that provides you with some amount of standby, grid, say like 7 days, installing a heat pump, I think, is now like in the realm of possibility. And you've probably seen these things a bunch, right? These little guys, all over the place.
Yep.
So I am kind of low-key obsessed with this technology. It's gotten to the point where these things are so inexpensive and so good that I know people that are like hardcore crusty off-grid wood stove people, and they're converting to these things now. Because I have a friend. Let's put this in perspective. I've got a friend. I think she's probably 35 or 36 now. She built a straw bale timber frame in the middle of the woods in upstate New York. And I'm talking 12 by 12 beams, 12 by 12 posts. It was the most overbuilt thing you ever saw with a wood stove on the bottom floor, and to heat the whole structure. And she, due to something happening with the family, she lived in a house, like an old farmhouse that had heat pumps instead of a wood stove. And the bill was so low, she said, I'm going to go heat pumps now. It's a magic box that hot air blows out of that I forget how much it costs because it's so low, right? And that's in upstate New York where it gets really cold. So a DIY heat pump, Mr. Cool is actually a really good brand. You can get them at Home Creepo. They're not that expensive. And let's see what they're going to charge. They did go up. This used to be $1,300 for this unit right here. Although this is probably a newer version, a newer generation, but for $1,700, this is a system that you can install yourself. It's designed to be installed by you and not require a permit or an installer. Okay. And so for $1,700, which could be cheaper than a pellet stove install or the wood stove and dealing with your fireplace, you can install one of these guys. And this unit here is going to probably draw, I'm just making this up, 7 to 9 amps of power at 240, which you know would your generator would be working, but you know it's easy, it's well within what your generator can handle, along with running all of your other loads. And this can, you know, this can be a backup to the natural gas. Now, I just it's hard for me to like. I do think natural gas would be very, very stable, but this could be an all electric option that will work. And this unit will still give you hot air, even if it's 0 degrees outside. Like that's how good these things are now. When I was younger, these things were not that good. When it got below freezing, they would be hardly more efficient than just running like a resistance heater, you know? Now they're more efficient than like an electric resistance baseboard heater, well below 0, or at least at 0 degrees. And honestly, how many days is 0 degrees the high, even for you? You know what I mean? It's like that's an exceptionally cold winter day, and this thing will still make.
I only have 7 to 10 days with 0 as the high.
Correct. So imagine having like a risk. You know, imagine that you have some kind of like a risk matrix where you're trying to ascertain, you know, how likely is it that it's going to be below 0 when the grid goes down and the natural gas stops flowing?
Yeah.
Right. And so if I were in your shoes, I would lean hard on assuming the natural gas is permanent, but definitely having a backup, a backup way to keep the grid going. And there's nothing wrong with having, you know, if you want 3 or 4 layers of redundancy, there's also nothing wrong with you having a couple propane tanks that are like $60 each to buy the tank and to fill it up with some of those like little cabin heaters. I've seen them. You plug the propane in it and you'll get a whole night of good heat out of a barbecue grill sized propane tank. There's nothing wrong with having a little bit more backup options like that, but it's just one of those things where like we all want the same thing. Like if things go to hell in a handbasket, we're all screwed no matter how well we prepared. But it'd be really nice to have 3, 4, 5, 6 days of oh yeah, we're fine, and the food's gonna stay good, and it gives you time to figure out what's gonna happen. And it's one of those things where I feel like so many bad choices that are made by people in tough situations are because they don't have time to figure it out, So hypothetically, let's say there's like a solar flare and it like blasts the grid and the grid's going to be down for 3 or 4 weeks. If you don't have only 24 hours because it's January to like vacate and to like find the family in Des Moines, Iowa, you're going to go crash with or whatever. Like if you've got that time, you can make much better informed decisions about what you should do. And you know what, like you'll have time to give away all the food in the freezer, or whatever. Right. And you don't get to have that if you don't have any level of backup at all. And I hate saying this, but almost no one has backups, and, I've got a friend that lives down in Louisiana where Ida like ravaged the place, and I forgot what it was, but I was looking up some statistics. And it was something like in an area where hurricanes have like a 1% chance of like destroying your house every year, and like a 15% chance of like more than a week of grid down every year due to storms. It was something like just a few percentage of all homes have a standby generator, Wow. And so just think about how much food is lost, whenever that happens, and everyone just lost all their food, and there's trees over the road, and it turns into Mad Max really fast. So, and also being super nice to your neighbors, like nothing's more important than you and your neighbors all being tight if something gets bad, because you'll all be looking out for each other. And, for all we know, your neighbors have 50 gallons of fuel, but they don't have a generator, and you work together, and yeah, everything will be good to go. But I think that you got a lot of work to do, but I think that you're in a much more attractive situation than a lot of people. And I think that your house is not gonna murder you. Like that can be a place you stay long term, and you can be totally happy with it. If it was a 1810 5,000 square foot farmhouse, that's a different story, you know. But no, I think you're in a good spot.
That's great. This has been super helpful. I mean, you really helped me with just knowing how to think about this.
Yeah, like it's all like, you know, I'm really big on like the 80-20 Pareto principle, right? I think to myself, how can I get 80% the benefit for 20% the effort? And sometimes you discover things are like 90-10. You get 90% of the benefit for 10% of the output. And it's kind of amazing. And it's just you have the exact same concerns I would have if I was in your shoes, and I would be trying to figure out what my budget really was, and I would just tell myself, okay, 2022, not looking good. Like, hell or high water, I want to have at least, you know, my 2 major backup systems, you know, in place before it gets cold again or something like that, you know? And, you know, not only that though, but, you know, there's all kinds of weird stuff going on, you know? I mean, I'm by no means an expert, but I just realized that Ukraine has a wheat harvest export that like literally is a major, it's like a major foundation of the global food supply, right? And this is just wheat in Ukraine, you know? I forgot how much it is that they export, but it is massive. It is a massive component of world food security. And so it's like there's all these different things, and you know, you've got a basement, you've got that little outbuilding. You know, you can get some extra food stocked up. Nothing major. Don't go crazy. You know, I would consider there's a website called Webstaurant Store. Boy, what is it with these horrible names?
I just discovered them. I just ordered a big box of salt from them.
Yeah, right. So I actually bought a 32-pound pail of salt. It is probably all the salt I need for my entire life. And it was like $12, right? So I turned on a friend to that website, and my friend was like, "You're a horrible man." And I go, "Why?" And he goes, "I just spent $400 at Webstaurant Store." And I was like, $400? Oh my God, you just bought so much food, didn't you? And he's like, "Yeah, it's coming in on a pallet." And he sent me a picture. He had a pallet 4 feet high. And it was like 300 pounds of pasta, bread flour, you know, and, you know, oats, and like 30 pounds of sugar. It was like $400, you know? And it's one of those things. It's just one of those things where it's like, you know, if you're going to use the products anyway, eventually just buy a bunch. It's no big deal, because it's, you know,
yeah, I mean, I've been thinking around those lines as, you know, inflation is going up. It's like, what am I doing holding on to cash? I should be getting the things that I need to live. I might as well use that cash while it's valuable.
So that $400 worth of food my friend bought came in on a pallet that, like, he was joking about, where am I going to put it? It's going to be $600 next year for that same pallet for $400, right? And so yeah, like invest in this, and invest in the goods that you want. And not only that, but like something that, you know, I don't really like the term prepping so much, because what now everyone would look at, you know, it's like somebody shared on like Twitter yesterday, like a picture that said something like, you know, but you don't think your grandparents were crazy. It just was a picture of a pantry of canned goods. Just a picture of like peaches and tomato sauce in a pantry. Like, but you know, I bet you don't think your grandparents were crazy now. And I was like, yeah, you know, it's like, no, they knew what was up, you know. And I feel like all of us getting a little bit more back to that. It's not even a matter of, oh, I want to be a prepper. I want to make sure that if things are weird, I'm safe. because I'm a sociopath. It's not about that actually. So like,
Yeah.
so in February 2020, I knew shit was going down, and I was keyed in. I knew what was going on. I knew it wasn't going to go well one way or the other. And so I went on Webstaurant Store and a couple other sites, and I bought a lot of food. But I bought food out of the restaurant distribution chain, right? And the last thing I wanted to do was be yet another person in Walmart or Surefine or Marsh or Kroger that's all fighting for this like just-in-time, razor-thin distribution system, right? And so I was like, okay, like I have the option, the foresight, and the means to not become part of that problem. I'm going to buy restaurant quantity food. I'm going to buy a fucking pallet of it.
Yeah.
And if things are weird, I can give all this food to all my neighbors for months and we're all good to go.
So it's not necessarily an antisocial
It's
thing.
not, it's actually the inverse, right? So,
Right.
so think of it this way. Like when everyone was making fun of the toilet paper situation last year or 2020, right? The toilet paper situation is very misunderstood. The problem is that it was very misunderstood. And like this kind of makes my point. People were not hoarding toilet paper. Like they might be a little bit, but the problem is that like 40 to 50% of all defecations in America were happening in a setting that used toilet paper at work or at bus stops or at gas stations, which is a completely different just-in-time fragile distribution system, And so people were hoarding toilet paper. It's just everyone was crapping at home, and there was no so there were warehouses floor to ceiling stacked with millions of rolls of like Torx brand restaurant toilet paper, and it just wasn't getting home. And even like the eggs were sold out. Restaurants were throwing out 140 case cartons of eggs, because there's no one to buy them, and at the grocery store there's no eggs, right?
Yeah.
And so tapping into the kind of one layer behind distribution chains, grab that stuff means you're never even really taking away from your neighbors. You're actually making everyone more resilient, and you're not becoming a stress on the system. If you ever were to need it. And so I'm all about it, and I just want to encourage everyone to just buy 50 pounds of oats is a lot of food. It's delicious and it's like $30, I love it.
That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, I love it. I love oats. But yeah, is there any final like, oh yeah, crap,
Well, I think this is a lot for me to process now. I think you have, I've been typing up a bunch of notes.
Good. Your notes are going to be better than mine.
This has been extremely helpful. I feel like I have a much better sense of like how to think about the problem, and I've got a list of ideas of things to do. And
yeah.
A good sense of the priority order too.
Yeah, exactly. And you can make a spreadsheet to figure out the cost versus benefit of certain things. But like I said, me throwing around $5,000 for a wood stove and a cheap generator, like I hope that's doable. I feel like that's what I could do it for, but I don't know what the economy is like up there. I don't know what the prices are, and I don't know how much of that work you're allowed to do yourself versus what you have to hire out, etc. But I don't think it's that unreasonable. I mean, just imagine being able to put 6 months worth of your discretionary income savings into a decade's worth of we're good, we're gonna be fine no matter what happens. And like I said, it's one of those things where there's nothing antisocial at all about this. Even going crazy and like having antibiotics and coolers and shit, like the more stable you are, the more stable your neighborhood is, the better everyone is. Yeah. And there's no bug out. There's only bug in. Bug out was never an option. It never made any sense. And so yeah, so just bug in and make your place freaking awesome.
Yeah. Sweet.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll jump off here then. But like I said, email me whenever you want, and definitely just so I know, so that I can play it forward and help out anyone else that has any questions. As you kind of go through some of these items and do the blower door test and things like that, just like drop me a line, or oh,
Okay.
the quote for the chimney thing was 10 grand or whatever. Just let me know, because that helps sharpen me. And so the
Yeah.
next person down the line I talk to, like in 6 months, whether I get to videotape it or if it's I'm at like, a cider house talking to somebody and somebody finds out I build houses, I'm talking about, this. Like, it helps make me sharper. And that's what I really want to know.
Cool. Yeah.
So yeah, just please keep me in the
Happy to
loop.
do that. And how do you have PayPal? How do I pay you for today?
Oh, I'll send an email. I'll probably just I'll send you a PayPal or a Venmo. No big deal.
Okay. Cool.
Um, yeah, I never even really thought about any of that stuff yet. But I'll probably eventually just take whatever PayPal, Venmo, because it's so easy. And I'll probably have some like addresses for crypto, because I love crypto, but we also need some cash. Otherwise, we're all screwed.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'll just send you when I send the email with my notes, which are going to be not very big now because I spent too much time talking and thinking. I'll just send you a link there.
Cool.
That's
Well,
fun. It's fun.
this is awesome. Yeah, I feel so much better about moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, like, yeah, keep me in the loop. And see, what I didn't mention to anyone else is that I'm actually writing a book, and I'm like 150 pages in, and I'm trying to keep it from being like more than 350 pages, which is going to be impossible, because I haven't even gotten to the part about explaining how I would approach building a from scratch small passive solar homestead. And the first 30 pages of the book are trying to talk people out of buying land and building a homestead and buying pre-existing homes. I spent 30 pages trying to convince people to do what you're doing and to homestead in place. Either homestead right where you are right now, no matter where it is, or if work or family or whatever compels you to buy in a suburb, how to buy an attractive, decent home like what you've got, and how to make that home like a little micro homestead earthship inside of this suburban landscape. And if anything, I think more people that are doing that are actually making our society stronger versus more idiots like me out on like survivalist hellscape land, where like the boulders are the size of trucks and you can't do anything. I actually think people that are making better utilization of existing resources are actually doing like really righteous work. And so, the first 30 pages are don't buy land, stay where you are. And then, another 30 or 40 pages are, okay, so you've got an existing home. Here's some basic stuff you can do to try to make that home better. I talk about the blower door test. I talk about the window quilts, the films, the heat pumps, pretty much all the same stuff. But anything you can share with me can be things that not only I can explain to other people, but it helps correct some of my misconceptions about pre-existing homes, because it's been like 10 years now since I've rented a place. And so I'm starting to like feel disconnected with, what a plumber costs and, all that kind of jazz. So definitely keep me in the loop. And
Cool,
I will
yeah.
absolutely send you a PDF of the book whenever it's done. And
Sweet.
I really hope I get it done, because I think it's important, because, there's so few resources for, like, there's 1,000 home building books, right?
Yeah.
But most of them are written in the 70s. And there's a lot of permaculture and gardening books, but there's not that many that kind of like in a 2020 post 2020 context, kind of like wrap it together into like a nice little package. And I feel like that's kind of what you're after. You're after like, okay, I got a house, I have a lot of ideas, I know what I want to do, like boot camp, we're just going to boot camp the shit out of this and do a little consulting. We're going to do some research. What's the blower door going to cost?
It's $100 for
That's
the.
not bad. Honestly, that's not bad. Like, that is priceless information.
And they're actually going to do a whole survey of the house too. They're going to
that's so
look.
perfect.
They're going to come up in the attic and look all around. So
That survey is going to tell you 100 things I could never figure out remotely from pictures. They're going to right off the bat, and also go on online and look up other ways too, where you can evaluate whether or not your exterior walls have had insulation added. This might be as simple as like tapping little holes and looking, but there are ways to do it. Some people tap the walls. Maybe there's like an electronic device, depending upon what the wall is made out of, that can tell you if it's insulated. But sometimes you can actually tell if you look really close on the exterior walls, you can tell where they had patched the holes where they filled the wall up with insulation. There's a million things you can do. But
it sounds like from what you were saying, the higher priority is really finding those air leaks.
I think air leaks, for me personally, air leaks is number one. Like tearing off the siding of the house on the outside and reskinning it with like foam board. That's like the last thing I would do. If it's your forever house, maybe it's on the table, but I would that is 30 or 40 grand worth of investment that there's probably no return on. You're just doing it because you've got the money and you've got the time, and with you paying so little for natural gas, a big energy crunch is coming. We all know it somehow or another. It's going to be bad. And, I think oil could reach $300 or $400 a gallon. I mean, a barrel. Natural gas is going to go up. Even if natural gas doubles in price, you're still in a really comfortable situation. There's going to be riots in cities, that don't have natural gas long before it starts to get too expensive for you where you're at. So, I think you're in a really good spot.
That's really reassuring to hear.
Yeah. And you can grow a lot of food in that little bit of yard. So.
Oh yeah. So those pictures are 3 years out of date. So.
Oh really? Okay.
It's we're working on it.
It's never ending. It's never ending. I put some raised beds in front of the house I'm in right now. I didn't build them until July. Planted some stuff. It was kind of late to plant anything. The kale did really well, and then the deer showed up and freaking mowed them down. Do you have deer? I'm hoping you don't have deer.
No deer. Lots of rabbits and squirrels, but
okay.
And they can be surprisingly destructive.
Raised beds can work on rabbits pretty good, hopefully, because they don't think to jump up in there and get up on it. But I've seen rabbits in raised beds too, but fingers crossed.
Right.
That's too funny. Okay, I'm gonna lose my voice if I don't shut up. So,
well, thanks again. It's been really great talking to you. I've learned a ton, and I'm sure I'm gonna go back and read these notes and remember all kinds of things that.
Yeah, absolutely, and just
to follow up on.
Like I'm not even requesting. I'm literally demanding that you tell me what the results are from the blower test and from what the survey says. And then just a handful of these quotes. Like, I will be sad if in a month's time I don't have at least one email from you that says, the transfer switch quote was $2,000. This is BS or something stupid. Because if that's the case, I'll find a video on YouTube and send you a link to like how you can pull the breaker out, or you can like hot swap the generator power to run the water pump, for the circulator or something, because it's like, no, I don't think so. Like, we're going to find a way around this.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I'll definitely keep you in the loop.
All right. That's awesome. All right. I'm shutting up because I'll think of something else to start ranting about if I don't hang up.
Cool.
All right. Well, take it easy. This was fun.
Yeah. You too.
Awesome.
All right.